Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for this Supercharge Your FinOps Investment with Optimization webinar. I'm Ashley Rodrigue. I am a Cloud Partner Manager at Intel, and I'm joined here today by Chuck Tatham, the Chief Revenue Officer at Densify, and Andy Walton, the VP of Sales at Densify. We have a great partnership between Intel and Densify, so we're excited to talk to you about this topic today. So first off, to kind of kick this off, we wanted to just mention that, Intel as a company has decided to really lean in and help our customers with optimization. And in order to do that, we felt that it was important to find really good partners in the industry that have great value and work with them to create programs and go-to-market strategies that offer our customers, value around what they're asking us for. And so we sought out to do that, and we found that there were certain areas along the cloud adoption journey or common themes or things customers were saying to us that we wanted to hone in on. So one of them was at the early part of the cloud adoption journey. Maybe these are customers who are just starting out on that path, or they're looking at migrating brand new workloads. Assessments were definitely something customers were looking for, and we wanted to be able to provide that migration assessment and advice. So we built a program around assessment. And then if you sort of take it all the way up to the other end, as you move to the right side of the slide, if you really want to get, very detailed around specific workloads and optimizing those, we found that it was another important thing to be able to hone in on a particular workload and dig deep on it and optimize that specific workload. And these we found were for customers that have probably already, been well on their path to the, cloud adoption journey path. And, they're mostly asking for our help, on those specific workloads. And then we found one of the areas that was super important to customers that, have quite a few workloads in the public cloud, and they want to take a very holistic approach on how do I manage this from the tops down level and continuously over time make sure that I'm getting the best Intel infrastructure for my workloads and the best price for that infrastructure, and not just take a set it and forget it kind of approach. Really, over time, make sure that you're always getting the best information available to you, the best technology as new releases of product come out, as maybe business needs change. And this is where we found that it was an excellent partnership between Intel and Densify to serve that customer. So what we've done here in partnership with Densify is created a program and an offering called Intel Cloud Optimizer, and that's what we're hoping to get you excited about today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, who will talk a bit more about it.
Thanks, Ashley. And Andy and I are pleased to be here with you today. We're going to take you through an overview of the ICO, Intel Cloud Optimizer offering, and do a bit of a demo. And then Ashley's going to come back and tell you how to find out more about the offer. So when we talk about cost in the cloud, we must think about and address the complete picture. And that includes not only the price you pay and the way you procure cloud, but also the way you consume it and your consumption optimization, selecting the right instance types and ensuring that you're not over provisioning workloads. We liken this to the basic price times quantity equation, which drives your overall cost proposition. And it's in this consumption optimization that Intel drives a significant amount of value around ensuring that the right products, the right CPUs, and the right features are underpinning those workloads. When you look at in an organization who deals with these parts of the equation, the world of finance generally concerns themselves with understanding the cloud bill, understanding and controlling the governance around cloud consumption, things like purchasing reservations and making commitments around savings plans, which ultimately drive discounts. When you get down into the actual consumption side of things, actually changing what resources you're bringing your workloads, addressing complexities around containers, getting into automating the selection of resources, and even integrating into the way you build your software or build your business applications. That is not the domain of finance. And it is oftentimes this division of responsibility that causes problems in FinOps strategies. This is a summary of the top issues as brought forth by a survey done by the FinOps Foundation that shows just how difficult it is to cross this chasm, if you like, in getting people to take action. Getting engineers and app owners to take action is a big challenge. And it's because the process of delivering software and deploying it, and we show a basic tool chain along the bottom, into your capacity, and then understanding the cost of that, are driven by these very different groups. And so finance might receive their bills, understand their costs, understand the commitments they can make for an organization, and get some discounting going with savings plans or reserved instances. But really all they do to relate to the application owner or what they're limited to do is to share those costs and hope that those that control the infrastructure will make good choices. And the reality is that those folks really care primarily about performance and delivering business functionality. They only care so much about cost. So there's a bit of a chasm here that needs to be bridged. So how do we bridge this gap? This gap is one that lives between the tooling or the solutions that are used to manage on the finance side of things. And you see a number of logos here. We see increasing functionality coming from AWS and Azure and GCP themselves. There are some terrific technologies by other vendors that do very powerful things for finance organizations. At the bottom of the screen, you see the DevOps pipeline. These are the tool chains that are used to introduce new functionality into environments by those engineers, by those business units and application owners. It is the gap between here around selecting the optimal resource, getting the right instance, selecting the right features from the cloud providers that is often left to estimation or guesswork. And it's this gap that Intel is addressing with ICO. So what is ICO? It is a SaaS delivered machine learning driven analytics engine that performs deep analysis of workloads on an ongoing basis. Andy will demonstrate some of this. Takes those learned patterns and then helps you select the absolute optimal amount and type of cloud resource. That is what ICO does. And by doing so, it allows you to replace the burden that you place on humans to pick these things and drives it with analytics and ultimately automation, which is a much more sophisticated way of working. So it's a much more efficient way of getting to the right answer. Now, how does it do this and why can you trust it? This engine is differentiated in the market because of its precision and its ability to solve for all of the constraints that come into the picture in making an optimal choice. It understands those demand patterns, it learns those patterns, it builds predictive models into the future. It is constantly ingesting and understanding the availability of infrastructure from the cloud providers, their performance characteristics, their technical constraints, and what they cost. It allows you to tag those entities with things that might be relevant to the business, that might impact your decision making. And then it has a policy engine that allows you to say what is fit for purpose for, let's say, production critical workloads versus perhaps dev test workloads, things that run overnight, let's say in a batch that you don't need to throw, the absolute top computational power at. You can run them more efficiently or more tightly. Those policies allow you to specify how you want to run workloads. And then based on that, we give you very precise answers that honor both the needs of the workload and don't offend any of those policies. So what does it then generate for you? Well, it generates answers that are balanced for performance and stability, and then cost and efficiency. So the engine might tell you that you need to upsize something, or that there's something more modern. Maybe there are newer versions of Intel CPUs available in the cloud that you might leverage, or entirely different families that fit your workloads better because they're optimized for the nature of your workload. These might be changes that are more expensive, but are going to ensure that your applications perform. We will then tell you whether there are changes that can be made to save money, things that could be changed that would, let's say, reduce something that has been over-provisioned and needlessly expensive. And that, of course, would impact auto-scaling and other elements of being in the cloud that are impacted when your infrastructure requirements flex up and down. So that's a sense for the types of recommendations we would make. Andy will show you examples of these. If we jump over to containers, this is a very, very rapidly growing area of our analytics, because container environments are even more complex than your average cloud infrastructure. They are highly subjected to humans making best guesses and not always getting it right. And so the same opportunities live here to improve performance and drive out costs. So what would this look like in practice? Well, if we go back to our chasm, and we understand that this brain could live and constantly monitor, learn, and analyze your workloads, generate optimization actions, both in human readable and what we call machine readable form. Those can be applied back into the tool chain or the deployment chain such that approvals can be achieved. So we're not saying we're going to go and change your infrastructure automatically. We're going to make those changes available to the life cycle that includes checking for approval from the application owners or the engineers. If the changes are presented in a way that are high trust and accurate, over time, those approvers will see how reasonable the suggestions are, how safe they are, and will allow them to happen. If we go back to that FinOps Foundation top challenge of getting engineers to take action, what we're doing here is making the information available, showing the proof or the logic behind the recommendation such that they will approve, so that it can be applied back to the infrastructure, which ultimately will optimize spend and please those that are concerned about that spend. The whole point here is to allow engineering and application owners to say, look, we've got this. We are taking the recommendations. The recommendations are derived in a trustworthy and accurate way, and we know the infrastructure is appropriately provisioned. So let's go to demo and have Andy show us some of this. So I will stop sharing, Andy, and you should be able to pick that up.
I think you might have to make me the presenter, Chuck. Someone might have to.
I will.
There we
go. Okay.
There we go. Great. All right, so let me spend a few minutes just giving a brief overview of the software, and I'm going to focus on the public cloud and containers optimization. So the main screen that you're seeing here right now is essentially the results after we go and we pull information in using agentless means in the public cloud, using publicly available APIs, or via containers with a Prometheus integration. All agentless. When the data comes in, it's typically after a number of hours, we will see the first results of, on the left-hand side, exactly what it is that we're auditing of the estate. The middle screen being how well are you doing from sizing your infrastructure today. Obviously, you want to be in the green, the optimal size, which means the application demand matches the supply that's being used today. In this case, we have a fairly large savings opportunity. And then over on the right, the before and after predicted utilization of what would happen if you take those Densify recommendations. The impact from a cost perspective is shown from a high level above, so around 37% is the impact in this environment. If I took all those Densify recommendations and applied them, some significant savings opportunities, but of course savings is not the only reason why you want to look at analyzing the environment. Again, making sure, ensuring performance and stability of those applications. If I go to the next level and click on data, we see a view now of looking at the infrastructure based on, in this case, grouped by owner. So a lot of information in here, but good stuff. If I sort this by efficiency rating essentially is how well are you using the infrastructure today. So sorted by the owners, I might want to go and talk to one individual person to see how well are they doing here. So an efficiency rating of say 1.0 is perfect. If you're below that, there's opportunities to potentially increase efficiency by decreasing resources. And above that means that there is potential risk in the environment. Again, any one of these columns can be sorted to say, who do I want to actually go after and talk to? Who's spending the most on a monthly basis, or potentially, who has the most opportunity for savings if that's the mandate? So that's to go and talk to those folks. Across the top, we leverage the tags that come out of the cloud or loading in from something like a CMDB, so we can actually drill down and filter in on specific applications or any number of tags that might be available in the environment. I'm going to change my grouping here and let's drill in on application. And again, let's view this data in a slightly different way. And now we've broken it out based on application. And so what I want to do is actually be able to dig down and have a look at some of the specific recommendations just to show you how we come up with the actual optimization recommendations. So if I click on mobile dev here, just because I have a small number of recommendations I want to focus in on, you can see the different ones that I have, and I'm going to drill in on one specific one, but you see the optimization types here, the kinds of recommendations, as Chuck was mentioning, of what the Intel Cloud Optimizer will come up with. Terminate recommendations to get rid of flatlined instances that might not be doing anything at all. Modernize recommendations, Chuck had mentioned. The key ones that are of most interest typically are the downsize or the upsize to optimal family, which means that you've chosen, in this case, an instance size that is maybe not the best one that's suited for this workload. So if I click on one here, what you'll see is the actual recommendation for this instance here that's currently running on a C4 extra large Linux. And the recommendation is to move from a compute optimized to general purpose M6i large Linux. I want to talk a little bit about these workload patterns you see down below here. This is one of the keys to our technology. What we do is we'll pull in the workload history. It could be 30, 60, 90 days worth of data. Again, depending on the policy, it might be appropriate to say for test dev, 7 days is enough to make a recommendation. We'll by default grab in the AWS environment 60 days worth of history if it's available. And then from that history, we build essentially a predicted pattern. So we learn from the past to predict the future. And we break that future down into a predicted 24-hour day with what we call averages and sustained activity and peak activity. So every hour represented by a quartile of activity. So all kinds of data points to make our recommendation on. So this is the predicted day for this instance as it's running on that C4 extra large. When we move to the M6I, this is the predicted workload pattern of what that is going to look like. And so you'll see we do that for the predicted day for CPU, the busiest day. So you might make a recommendation for some critical applications, say, make my recommendation based on the busiest day I saw in that period. Memory utilization, disk and network IO, and we can augment these analytics with additional metrics that may not be available from the public cloud provider, but loading in from something like a monitoring tool like Datadog or Splunk. So that's the predicted workload pattern. And what you see is it will never make a recommendation, it will cross whatever barriers that you've set up inside the policy itself for that particular workload type. So I scroll across the recommendation, we will see additional information as an example. Is there RI coverage, say a standard reserved instance? If you're currently covered by one of those, we don't want to optimize you out of coverage. So the analytics are informed as to whether or not you're covered by those things. We'll look at the predicted uptime and the predicted impact on savings or additional cost as necessary. We'll also look at something called effort level, which is really important when we start digging into, well, how hard is it going to be to make this recommendation? So I click on effort level details. In this case, not a lot of differences between these two instances, the C4 extra large and the M6I. We're moving from different instance families, newer generation. If I look at this other recommendation, you'll see some other things in here, changing hypervisor types. Am I moving into an instance that can't support certain IOPS? So the recommendations are fully informed, and you'll see additional recommendations coming in as we're going through additional analysis and work and efforts with Intel, where looking at specific applications and are they better suited for certain chipsets as an example. And then across, you'll see a lot of detail in terms of, how well are we, what are we doing before and after, current benchmark results, et cetera. Now it's nice to see this information in the interface. The great thing is that every single recommendation from Densify is fully informed by something we call an application owner report or an impact analysis report. And so every recommendation is fully transparent in terms of what it is that we're telling you that it's going to happen to that instance. And it's called an application owner report. So the application owners will know exactly the details here. So there's nothing hiding or anything. It's not a recommendation based on, say, saving you $40 a month. It gives that person all kinds of information about what the before and after is going to look like, changes in the metrics themselves, what are the cost impacts, et cetera. So everything that's in the interface can be fully accessed through the API. And this is the kind of information that our customers like to see attached to something like an ITSM record, which is, before I make this change, maybe I want to open up a ticket, someone needs to review it. This is the kind of evidence that we would provide to make sure that everyone is comfortable that the change we make is not going to hurt anything in terms of performance.
I think, Andy, that compared to, there are many solutions in the market that will give you cloud suggestions, and most organizations of any scale eventually say, we just can't act on those general suggestions because they're not precise enough. And
that's right. It might be making a recommendation that's like, it's based on 5% average utilization. It's like, okay, let's downsize it. And it's like, well, you just because you didn't look at a peak period within a specific hour on a specific day, as an example. You didn't take that into consideration. Lots of tools out there that will slice the bills. There are not many. In fact, I can only think of really one that will give you very, very precise recommendations based on this machine learned predictive analysis of what's going to happen, and make those folks comfortable that they can actually take these recommendations and ultimately automate them.
Yeah, we will often hear, well, I get answers from my providers, cost recommendation tools, and they really are only guidelines or suggestions. They are not down to the specific workload with the rigor that we're talking about here. So it is a very different approach. So did you have anything more to show, Andy, or are we going to jump to
2 more minutes just to cover quickly on containers as well, because as you mentioned, this is a growing area. And so the container analysis that we do for Kubernetes, wherever it lives, whether it's running in the public cloud on Azure or GCP or on-prem and OpenShift, we'll analyze that container environment very similar way that what we're doing for the public cloud. So again, inventory, how well are you doing from a sizing perspective, the impact of the resources, the key resources in containers environments being CPU and memory requests and limits. And so what's the impact of taking these recommendations? By drilling down and looking at how well are you doing from a sizing perspective, this histogram, again, if it was a detailed presentation, I'd drill right in, but the nice thing is from a high level for these key metrics, it tells you how well you're doing from a sizing perspective. So green, again, being perfect. In a case like something like CPU request, if I look at a metric out here in the yellow, it basically means this metric says these 59 containers have 500% more resources, 5 times more resources on CPU requests than are required by the demand that they're generating. So a huge amount of waste. Again, what you're doing is sizing out nodes that they're running on that are going to be way oversized if you size your infrastructure, those pods at that level. Subsequently, on the memory side, something at risk here. You know, in this case, these particular containers, 74 of them, have 1/3 the amount of resources that they actually require.
And Andy,
and so they are
that bar is representing the number of containers in that environment that have that issue, right?
That's correct. In this case, 74 of them have this issue of being sized 1/3 smaller than they need to be. And so the risk of that is that essentially the Kubernetes engine will kill these things, a memkill situation, if you've got this particular condition being detected. And so again, from a risk perspective, you want to drill in and find out exactly what's going on. And of course, from the details perspective, all that information is available. So I can drill in and dig into exactly those kinds of situations, see what the precise recommendations are for every single instance, and the same kind of machine learned behavior of analyzing and then making recommendations to set these things correctly. So from a high level, this is what I wanted to cover here today. I don't know if I missed anything, Chuck, if there's anything else you wanted me to add.
I think that's great overview. As we tell people how to get more information, of course, more information can include deep dive of some of these capabilities. So I'm going to go back to the program information. So Ashley, maybe you could tell people a little bit more about the program. We've talked about the technology. Let's talk about the program.
Absolutely. So we're really excited to offer a 12-month software subscription to Intel Cloud Optimizer, which is managed and delivered by Densify. So you will get the level of expertise that you're hearing, today and you saw from the demo to help really, get the most out of the solution. You will get, a lot of customers will ask us, well, does this mean we'll only see if we're running on Intel? And actually, no, you will see everything, right? You'll be able to see, have visibility across your entire estate, which does include the non-Intel instances. And you will also have access to our technical staff. So one of the things that we've seen is that some customers who are in this program do really like to have access to our cloud solution architects and to get kind of a NDA roadmap on what new products are coming from Intel, right? And they can use that information and work with us collaboratively to plan for their business needs. So that's another benefit of the program, is that we can lean in and help as much as you'd like us to. And really, the only difference between the Intel Cloud Optimizer and the Densify solution that you just saw demoed today is that the analytics are not going to recommend changes to run on Intel unless there's a legitimate improvement by doing that. So what you saw there with the explanation of how they're using AI, ML, a robust policy engine, benchmarking, and really giving you some fine tunability with how these recommendations are arrived at. They're not going to recommend Intel unless there's really something better from Intel. So I just want to make that also clear. And there are some really great add-on options available from Densify over time. So we do hear from a lot of customers that they really, they love the idea of this and they want to move towards automation. They maybe want to integrate with some of the things that they already have in their environment today. And so, of course, those things are definitely available, and we love to help you with those add-ons over the 12 months as you should, need those things. One question I get from customers is, what's the catch, right? This sounds great. I'm going to get 12 months of this best-in-class solution to help me optimize in the cloud. And why is Intel doing this, right? Why are you covering my subscription, right? So I'll just say that I think the most difficult thing working at Intel, being an Intel employee, is when people, ask me what value we have to offer, because we have such a width and breadth of products and solutions and things that we do in the ecosystem. Like here, where we're showing you, we work with all these different ISVs, and we develop all these really great, hardware features, and we work with the software companies to leverage those hardware features, and and then we're all excited about it, and we put that information out, but it gets lost in a sea of information because Intel has so much to offer. So what we're really trying to do here, and we believe that we are seeing those early results from Intel Cloud Optimizer customers, is that we are making it much easier for you to pick the best Intel infrastructure to meet your needs, using a best-in-class solution to help you do that. So that's one of the things that I get a lot is sort of what kind of value could we expect? What are the results you're seeing? So we've highlighted a few of those things here. We've even included a couple of quotes for you guys from customers that are enrolled in the program, so you can see some of the things that we're seeing, which we're really excited about. So hopefully this has enticed you guys to reach out and learn a little bit more and see if you perhaps qualify for this program. We'd love to talk to you. The best way to reach out is if you have an Intel rep and you know who they are, you could reach out to them directly, and they should be able to help. We can get you set up for a more in-depth demo. So what you saw from Andy today was just a little flavor of it. We can go deeper, and we can, of course, answer any questions that you might have. So with that, we're excited that you were here with us today. We hope this was good information, and we look forward to speaking with you directly.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for having us.